Hello, this is Mr. Allen. I am your son or daughter's calculus teacher, and I wanted to give you a quick update for the week of September 28th. So this week in class, we are looking at something called the chain rule. And the chain rule is basically how we calculate derivatives of composition of functions. And a composition of a function is basically when one function is inside of another function. So here's the chain rule kind of laid out explicitly. Basically, if you're trying to find the derivative of a composition of functions, you differentiate the outer function, leave the inner function alone, and then multiply that by the derivative of the inner function. So here's a quick example of that. Suppose I want to calculate the slope of a tangent line of y equals sine x to the third at x equals 0. So my function here is a composition of functions. And the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what f prime is. That's the derivative of y using the chain rule. So the outer function here, I'll call it f of u, is the sine function. The inner function is g of x, which in this case is x to the third. So we can see we have a composition of functions, so we want to use the chain rule. Therefore, y prime will equal f prime of g of x times g prime of x. So we're going to do the derivative of the outer function, which is sine, and the derivative of sine is cosine. Then I'm leaving the inner function the same. Now I need to multiply this by g prime. The derivative of x to the third is 3x squared using the power rule. So now we can use our first derivative to calculate the slope of the tangent line at x equals 0. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to actually plug 0 into our new function y prime. So what I've done here is I've just changed my x's to 0. Of course, 0 to the third is 0. 3 times 0 squared is also 0, so I'm doing cosine of 0 times 0, which is 0. So now we can answer our question. The slope of the tangent line of y equals x, or sine x to the third at x equals 0, is m equals 0. In other words, the slope of the tangent line is 0. Final thoughts for this week. Number one, Monday and Tuesday of this week, students are taking those quizzes on Chapter 2, Sections 2.1 and 2.2. I will get those graded and in the grade book as soon as possible. I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to mention this again. I have had some students reach out to me saying they don't quite understand why they're not doing better on quizzes or tests. And the thing I've tried to point out to them is they say, well, I watch your video and I do the homework. Remember, when I create these modules, what I try to do is I try to, number one, be consistent, but I also try to minimize the required amount of work in my class. So if a student is just watching my video and just doing the homework, that may not be enough for them. That is why I'm posting extra videos and extra practice problems. So if your son or daughter is not getting the content like they want, check and see, are they doing those extra videos or watching those extra videos? Are they doing those extra problems? Have them show them to you. And there should be a lot of work on those problems. These problems they're not super difficult, but they do require work to be written down. You cannot do most of these problems in your head. So have them physically show that to you. And if they've done that, then we can start having a conversation. To get good at math, you have to practice the math. And finally, I'm going to remind you again, like last week, the end of the 9 weeks is on Friday, October 9th. So I'm just asking that you please make sure that your son or daughter has all of their makeup work and missing work all taken care of before that Friday, so that we can end the quarter and go on fall break without worry. Thank you so much for your time.